Ladies and gentlemen, the 2025-26 League One campaign is upon us. By the time the next episode comes out, the first game week will have been played, and today we are back for the League One transfer roundup. We're going to go through all of the business that has happened over the last, technically 6 days or so now, isn't it? Because obviously last week's episode came out on the Tuesday. If you do want to enjoy, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 140 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. What do you believe has been the best piece of business completed over the last 6 days or so? And also let me know how would you assess your club's transfer business so far. Apart from that, let's waste no further time and get straight into it. AFC Wimbledon has still yet to do any further transfer business, and I am getting very concerned about them going into next season, especially when you look at the fact they've brought in Lee Brown back on trial, but there's been no incomings or outgoings out of the Wombles. In terms of Barnsley, they haven't brought anybody else in through the door. I'm pretty sure we did mention Caelan Vickers in the last episode, but there has been a departure. Karen Lofthouse has joined a fellow League One side for an undisclosed fee. A decent right back for the club that he's joined, which we'll come on to in a moment, but I don't ever see him really being a consistent starter for Barnsley, if I am being completely honest. In terms of Blackpool, I don't believe they've brought anybody else in through the door, and I don't think we've seen any further departures either out of Blackpool. So move on then to Bolton Wanderers, who have signed Ethan ERHAHON. They've signed Ethan, a 24-year-old central midfielder who's come in from Lincoln City for around £800,000. I do think that is a smart addition. Obviously, one of the better midfielders in League One at last campaign and over the last couple of seasons, really. And to bring him away from a fellow League One side again, I don't really see Lincoln challenging this season, but it shows Bolton's statement of intent. They're certainly spending that Aaron Collins money in this transfer window, and I don't believe they've brought anybody else in through the door. But Bolton have certainly recruited very smartly so far. Their oldest player they've signed is 25 years of age. And in terms of departures out of Bolton, obviously nothing further I don't think has been confirmed. It's not just the Aaron Collins money that they're spending, they also sold George Thomason as well the other week, didn't they? In terms of my team Bradford City, we brought in a 20-year-old central midfielder JENSON METCALFE for an undisclosed fee. He obviously spent last season on loan with Chesterfield in League 2 and was brilliant for them, especially in the second half of the campaign. Actually scored a worldie against Bradford City, played his first pre-season game on Saturday and looked tidy on the ball. Certainly a man who's not scared of a slide tackle or going into a 50-50, and we could maybe see him pick up the odd booking or potential red card this season. But it would interest me to know what the actual fee is for Metcalfe. Obviously he's coming on a 3-year deal, and I do believe it is a great signing, but I thought, you know, there was a pathway for him to potentially one day make it at Everton. You know, he has his League 2 loan spell last season. This year I thought he was going to come on loan to us as well. And then, you know, the next season it's Championship, and then hopefully he's in the Premier League. Obviously it doesn't quite work like that. Sometimes you need a season, multiple seasons in the same division, but the fact we've managed to get him in on a permanent transfer, I am really happy with that signing. Will provide some competition for Max Power, Tommy Lee, Alex Patterson in them holding midfield positions, and Bradford City haven't seen any further departures. Burton Albion, they are the destination of Karen Lofthouse. I think obviously he spent the second half of last season on loan with the Brewers from the Reds. He's obviously now made that permanent. I think it's a great move really for all parties. Lofthouse is going to play more football. Burton have got a player that they want, and Barnsley have got rid of a player that they didn't want. So it's just kind of one of them things in football which makes sense really for all parties. There hasn't been any further transfer business, whether incomings though, from the Brewers, but they have seen a departure, and that is in the way of 24-year-old striker Roman Burrell. He has joined a Championship side QPR for an undisclosed fee. Obviously his time with the Brewers was very short and sweet, just 12 months there, and did very well under Gary Bowyer. It's crazy to see how his career has kicked on compared to the 3 or 4 matches he played on loan for my team Bradford City back in the COVID season, which is absolutely crazy because he never really looked like anything, but it goes to show that players can actually develop over time, and QPR have spent a hefty whack on him. In terms of Cardiff City, they're still yet to do any transfer business. Does anybody know at Cardiff that you're actually meant to sign players during the transfer window? You know, the season starts in 4 or 5 days and you've still not signed a single. So yes, they've not lost that many players of any real significance, but I think they've got to be bringing in a few younger players players on cheaper wages and just try and have a bit of a rebuild. You got relegated last season and finished bottom of the Championship for a reason. There's got to be a bit of change there for me. In terms of Doncaster Rovers, I don't believe they've brought anybody else in through the door, but a lot of Doncaster fans were calling me deluded in the video I did the other day, talking about how our transfer window has been better than theirs. For me, I don't look at a single Doncaster signing and think any of those players start for Bradford City. They might not look at any of our signings and think that a single player starts for them. It's just football and opinions. For me, obviously I'm going to have a slight bias towards the Bradford players. Doncaster fans are going to have a slight bias towards the Donny players, but I don't look at Glenn Middleton and think I'd love him back at Bradford City. In terms of departures out of Doncaster, I don't think there has been anything further from that point of view. Obviously, Will Flint's joined Gateshead, but I don't think that really matters too much. He's a 19-year-old central midfielder. Exeter City haven't brought anybody else in through the door. In terms of departures, I don't believe there has been anything that's happened from that point of view either. So we will move on to Huddersfield Town, who have obviously had an unbelievable transfer window. They've brought in 26-year-old defensive midfielder Marcus McGuinn. He's come in on an undisclosed fee from Bristol City. I can't quite remember if we have previously mentioned him, but he's going to get another mention in this week's episode. Obviously, their transfer window has been brilliant, and they're probably going to beat us, which we'll just quickly move on from. In terms of departures out of Huddersfield, nothing further has happened from that point of view, so we will now move on to Leyton Orient. I'm struggling to remember which players we've already mentioned in this roundup. I think we've already mentioned them all, apart from their recent loan addition in the way of Teo Adaramola, 21-year-old left wing-back, joins on loan, obviously, from Crystal Palace. He spent the second half of last season on loan with Bradford City, first half of the season on loan with Stockport County, where he couldn't actually get into the team because of how good Ibu Toure was for Stockport. Obviously, we've brought in Ibu Toure now to Bradford. Adaramola, for me, would have been third choice left wing-back this season. He would have been behind Richards, he would have been behind Toure. So bringing him back is something that I don't think would have really made sense, especially when we've also got Tariq Wright, who can play in that position. I do think it is a decent signing for Leyton Orient. Going forward, he is very good, he's very quick, but defensively he will leave a lot to be desired, especially in League One. I think he could certainly struggle at times with his positioning a little bit. He's a bit soft in the tackle, but going forward he's great, can certainly whip a ball into the box, and I'm looking forward to seeing the battle between Adaramola and Josh Nerfield coming into this season. There hasn't been any further departures out of Leyton Orient. In terms of Lincoln, they're still yet to bring anybody else in through the door, but obviously we do know that the central midfielder Ethan has moved over to fellow League One side at Bolton Wanderers for around £800,000. I'm sure they might have been wanting a little bit more money for him, especially seeing how much Ethan Galbraith did eventually go for, but it's still a hefty whack to get into your back pocket, especially when you've lost the likes of Sean Rowan and Paul O'Connor on free transfers. I know they'll obviously get a bit of compensation for Rowan as well. In terms of Luton Town, they haven't done any further transfer business, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure we have already mentioned all of their business. In terms of departures, again, there hasn't been anything further from that point of view out of Luton, but they have had a pretty good transfer window on the whole, got around €5 million, £5 million into the transfer kitty as well, and only spent really about £1 million on Josh Keeley. In terms of Mansfield Town, I don't believe they've done any further transfer business, whether incomings or outgoings at this stage in the window. I wouldn't expect there to be too much movement for a lot of the clubs as well. In terms of Northampton Town, again, I don't believe they've done any further transfer business, whether incomings or outgoings either. So we'll move on then to Peterborough United. Again, I'm looking at their business and I'm not really seeing much further from an incomings or an outgoings point of view either. So we'll move on then to Plymouth Argyle, who, again, I don't believe they've brought anybody else in through the door over the last couple of days. And again, we've not seen any further departures out of home pack. So move on to Port Vale, who again have done no transfer business over the last week, whether incomings or outgoings. In terms of Reading, I think they've made a signing of Reading. 27-year-old defensive midfielder Liam Fraser. We've actually got something to talk about. He's come in on a free transfer from Crawley Town. Unfortunately though, I don't really know too much about him, but obviously he provides a bit of experience in that midfield, and I do think, they'll be hoping that he'll be looking to do well. I don't really know what else to add about Liam Fraser. We have seen a departure out of Reading FC. Abraham Kanu, a 20-year-old centre-back, has joined National League side Forest Green on loan. I think, again, that's probably a good move for him to go out, play some regular first-team football and try and develop under, is it Steve Cottrell? He is now at Forest Green Rovers. In terms of Rotherham United, I believe they have done some transfer business, so we'll quickly try and wrap that up. Denzel Hall, a 24-year-old right-back, has come in from Heronveen for an undisclosed fee. I don't really know much about him, if I am being completely honest. And Marvin Coletta, a 20-year-old right-back, has come in on an undisclosed fee from Wolverhampton's under-21. So two fairly young right-backs joining up with Rotherham this season, but I am very concerned about them going into next season. I just don't think they've done enough business. Daniel Gore, pretty sure we have already mentioned him, but he's a 20-year-old central midfielder who has rejoined the club on loan from Manchester United, I believe. Had previously spent time on loan with Rotherham. I think has also had a loan spell with Port Vale as well. Hasn't really kicked on in his career, so we'll be hoping to do that this time around with the Millers. There hasn't been any further transfer departures out of Rotherham, so we'll move on then to Stevenage FC, who I believe have brought in a player over the last week. Matthias Roberts, a 20-year-old attacking midfielder, has joined on a free transfer from Ipswich's under-21s. Can't really say I know too much about him, but just another option for them to add to their arsenal in the final third, and there hasn't been any further departures out of Stevenage. I was going to say Walsall then. The badges are certainly very similar. In terms of Stockport County, I don't believe they've brought anybody else in through the door at this stage, and I don't believe we've seen any further departures out of there either. Wigan Athletic still yet to do any further transfer business. I do believe they need to bring in another creative sort of midfielder or maybe another winger option, but they've had a really quiet transfer window on the whole. Just 3 players coming in permanently, and they've only seen 3 or 4 departures as well. Finally, Wycombe Wanderers. There is a fair few deals that they have done so far, but we have already spoke about all of them, and I don't believe there has been any further transfer departures either. Shamal George, a 27-year-old goalkeeper, has joined St Mirren on loan, but that is about it to report for Wycombe. A very, very quiet week. In terms of signing of the week, I'll probably have to give it to my team Bradford City really for the signing of JENSON METCALFE, just because not really a lot else has happened over the last 7 days. I do like Ethan signing for Bolton. I think he is a tidy midfielder, but obviously they've paid quite a significant transfer fee to get him in through the door, but I'm going to have the bias towards my team Bradford City. I think Metcalfe is a great player and it's my channel. I'll do what I want. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 140 likes as I mentioned at the start of today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. What do you believe has been the best piece of business completed over the last 6 days, and how would you assess your club's transfer window on the whole? I'm not so sure if I'm going to continue this series once the season does start, because business isn't really happening as of right now, or we might just get through with it until the end of the transfer window. But thank you all for the support on the channel. As always, it is massively appreciated. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one.